Hello, world. Welcome to the 223rd Climate Change Emergency Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm doing it from home. This is March 10th, 2023. The next one will be number 224. That'll be on March 17th, 2024. The reason doing it at home is this is too important. This thing has been nagging me for, oh God, a couple weeks now as to come up with this chart as to what I think is happening or going to happen with not only the temperatures but the level of catastrophe. Okay, I came up with a chart that shows the catastrophe level. You know, no one's ever done this, so I don't know if this is crazy or extremely smart or whatever. But no one's ever attempted a chart like this or thought about a chart like this, and so I'm going to present it to you, and you can tweak it or come up with ideas beyond it or whatever, or share it with whomever, and to see if it has some plausibility. My handwriting's not that great. I did it by hand. As I said, this has been just bothering me for weeks now, and it's been rattling around in the back of my head. So this is called the TICC-TOC scale. It stands for the International Climate Change Table of Catastrophes. So TICC, it would be the International Climate Change, and TOC would be Table of Catastrophe, and I call it the McHenry scale. I don't know if you can see it real well. I'm going to go around and hold it in front of the camera, and then maybe it'll make more sense as to what's what. So, yeah, it's TICC and TOC, okay? You get it? Okay. So this is the set of numbers I've come up with. I'll hold them up in front of the camera at first, and then talk about them in a second. So this is a level of catastrophe that I've come up with based on temperature, this side, and based on the level of catastrophe and how quickly it increases. Okay, and it seems to be holding true for the first few years here. So, maybe I'm onto something, maybe I'm not. It doesn't matter when you get to the higher numbers because it becomes catastrophic. And if you're dying right now, it is a catastrophe. And that's what's happening around the world, but especially right now in California. They just discovered at least 13 people have been buried by the snow. And what's happening is that they're not talking about why these things are happening, on the news or the weather. They're just saying things are happening, but they don't explain why it's happening. I lost half my notes. Shoot. So they're around somewhere. But, wow, that's a bummer. Huh. Okay. Well, so the level of catastrophe keeps increasing with the level of increase in degrees Celsius since the 1880-1750 baseline. Okay, so right now we're at 1.2 degrees supposedly since the 1880 baseline. I totally disagree with that. I think in reality we're probably at 1.6 degrees above the 1750 baseline. And that's the number they should be using because 280 parts per million was the last time where conditions did not change. By 1880, you're into 300 parts per billion or whatever, and you start getting feedback loops. They might be slow in happening and incremental, but feedback loops, once they start happening, cause other feedback loops. So my thought is that, let's see, right now we're originally at 1 degree Celsius above baseline. But right now we're at 1.2 degrees Celsius above baseline. Catastrophes are happening basically 4 times the rate what they used to happen when I was a kid. Once in a while I'd get a hurricane or whatever and people would die. But now things are really starting to pick up speed. And we're approaching 1.3 degrees Celsius increase since the baseline. And my thinking is we're going to encounter an 8 times increase in catastrophe levels, okay? So you have a doubling in my mind as far as what's going on. So 1.4 degrees will lead to, instead of 8 times catastrophes, we're going to have 16 times the amount of catastrophes that we're having now. And by the time we get up to 2 degrees Celsius, which, depending on who you're talking to, the UN IPCC in 2015 said we want to hold things below 2 degrees Celsius increase, and then the island nations and the global south said, hey, we're already encountering catastrophes, so we got to shoot for 1.5. Well, 1.5 is out of the question now. I mean, we've gone so far beyond that as far as what's going to happen. We've got so much inertia going on right now that there's no way the world will hold temperatures below 1.5 degree increase in catastrophes. So, at that point, I'm thinking we're going to have 32 times the amount of catastrophes that we had way back when it was just normal, when I was born. So now we're up to 64, then up to 1,024 times level of catastrophes at 2 degrees Celsius. 1,000 times more catastrophes than what we're having right now, okay, or what we had back then. Right now we're at 4. Okay, so a factor of 4 up to 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, and 1,024. At 2 degrees Celsius, things are way out of control. You're into feedback loops, and feedback loops such as loss of sea ice and methane release from the permafrost, and nitrous oxide release from the permafrost, rainforest dying and releasing carbon dioxide, which they're doing now. We're seeing it here in the forest. In fact, the trees are dying all over the place. And when the trees die, they release the carbon dioxide and also methane when they burn or when they just rot away as well. There's no slowing with carbon dioxide right now. Oil, gas, and coal are going at a record rate supposedly because of the war in Ukraine. Conveniently so, that war broke out right when we were starting to get things under control concerning climate change, as well as coronavirus. We have a concern about the wars breaking out, also weapons being played with in the labs. This is called gain of function. People don't want to talk about it. Hopefully they won't kill my talk off because I'm actually talking about it. But if you look at certain viruses that have appeared in the recent so-called years, you will recognize, if you do any sort of level of research, that these viruses that are coming out are not naturally occurring viruses. I'm talking recently, not in the past. Okay, so these are lab gain of function, meaning they get a virus and then they tweak it, then it becomes deadly. 6 million or 8 million people can tell you about the recent one. So you get these labs, and this is part of the doomsday clock. They talked about climate change is one of the legs of the doomsday clock that's going to be catastrophic for humans. It could end all life on Earth. They talk about the wars and the threat of nuclear war, where these leaders aren't leaders anymore. They're just fucking warmongers, and things just keep going on and on and on. And no one will protest and talk about it and say, we got to stop this stuff. The Joe Biden fiscal plan for coming up for 2024 there's an increase of what they say is 3.2% increase in military spending. That's a lie, because the year before he proposed 774 billion. Now it's 886 billion. That's a 14% increase, not a 3% increase. This is a country going down the tubes real quick, and it's just like the Romans. They're going to run out of money, and we're going to deficit spending, and we're going to overextend ourselves, which we've done already, and we're going to be wiped out just like Rome if we continue on this path. Rather than a path of peace, we got to start talking to each other, get over this war situation. Putin needs to be taken out and hung to dry, and then our leaders in this country need to be told that you cannot keep on this path. You're actually doing crimes against humanity. You Kamala Harris saying the Russians were committing crimes against humanity. Any war is crimes against humanity. There are innocent people that die, which is an instant crime against humanity. So there's no innocent people in this situation, and we need to start cutting military spending around the world. We need to have nuclear talks and get to talking to each other again. This childish action of leaders involved is not going to get the job done. We will surely die based on this, based on nuclear weapons, and based on bioweapons. It's only a matter of time till another bioweapon comes out again, and the next one's going to be really severe because they know how fast to tweak it and what to mess with, and no one's stopping them. These bioweapons being played with in labs, right down south of here, are going to be lethal. Okay, way beyond lethal. I mean, like, could be planet-ending. This is based on the doomsday clock people that came out, the atomic scientists of atomic engineers or whatever they were called. But look it up, doomsday clock. We're 90 seconds to midnight. This is the closest it's ever been. We need to stop this path we're on. People are not willing to protest. People are not willing to talk about what's happening. And if you do, God forbid, you're ostracized by your friends and family or anyone you talk to about it. So we need to stop this path we're on. You got to get a hold of yourselves and stop with this flying the Ukrainian flag, flying the Russian flag, having sympathy for both sides. Stop it already. Okay, this is just absolute insanity that's happening. So this is where we're headed. Okay, and I'm getting amped up about this, but I should be. Right now, we're at 4 times the level of catastrophe is what we were. We're headed for 8. We're going to 16, 32. Now, at this point down here, it doesn't matter. You're in a chaos situation where the numbers get so unprecedented, 1,000 times, which is 2 degrees Celsius, then 2,000 times, a little increase of that, then 4,000, 8,000, 16,000, 32,000. United Nations, IPCC, predicts that we're going to 2.6 degrees Celsius increase. That, by my estimate, is 65,000 times more of the catastrophes than what we're having at this point right now, for all intents and purposes. This is unsurvivable, okay? Anyone that says we're going to deal with 2 degrees Celsius and try to mitigate it or adapt to it, there is no adapting to this situation. The Earth kicks loose its feedback loops. El Nino is coming. We're into a neutral El Nino between La Nina and El Nino right now. And most likely we're going to go into an El Nino situation. Those who don't know, an El Nino will vent off massive amounts of heat from the ocean because the oceans absorb 93% of what's going into our atmosphere as far as heat. They take it in. That's a 7 atomic Hiroshima bombs per second in heat the oceans are absorbing. You know, how do you explain that to someone? I mean, it's a massive amount of heat. Global dimming, the cleaner the air gets, and this is reverse thinking, with the pollutants in the air, the little particulates reflect the sun in the atmosphere, okay, back out into space. But once you clean up the atmosphere, the temperature is going to skyrocket, probably a quarter degree Celsius, if not a half degree Celsius. That causes more feedback loops, which causes the El Nino to occur again and again and again. It might never ever go away if the oceans keep absorbing all this heat. It causes more methane release from the permafrost, burning of peat bogs in Siberia. Rainforests fall back and die absolutely. Less oxygen, more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, nothing to absorb the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Are you understanding this feedback loop thing going on? More wars erupt as a result of that because there's more civil unrest. More civil unrest leads to government desperation. So they start, and mass migration. So they start battling people coming into their borders, such as what's going to happen in Bangladesh versus India. Where are they going to go? They're going to try to go into India or into Myanmar, which is Burma, and they're going to be turned back. And you're going to have massive clashings of people one way or the other. Then you end up with government collapse. You get ocean heating. The oceans are going to continue to heat with these feedback loops going on in a hotter environment. And carbon dioxide has a 10 to 30 year delay in catching up to temperature versus carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So we're living in the year right now, back in the year 2000 or 2010. This is before China, or at the time China started cranking out one new coal energy plant per week. I mean, it was crazy how many coal plants they were putting online. So, and that's because we're buying all their stuff, okay? We don't need new iPhones every year. We don't need this. We don't need that. You don't need new home improvements every 5 minutes, you know? You don't need to buy the new latest thing. Okay, so then you get ocean acidification too, which kills off the coral reefs, which kills off much of the ocean, causes dead zones, as well as the ocean heating. When water absorbs more heat, it holds less chemicals in it. So it's going to shoot off not only, it can hold oxygen, but it'll also get rid of the carbon dioxide that's in there, which will revent it back into the atmosphere after it already absorbed it from the atmosphere. So it's going to revent heat, then it'll revent the carbon dioxide, which causes more feedback loops. Are you getting a theme here? More feedback loops, more feedback loops. So you get more sea level rise, you get ocean death, you get dead zones in the ocean. There were 14 dead zones in the ocean. Now there are probably many more than that. You get a global warming, as I said, from dimming of or lack of dimming in the atmosphere due to less particulates. You run the risk of, with less glaciers in Antarctica and also in Greenland, those glaciers go into, the weight of it goes into the ocean once it melts, and it becomes very heavy in the oceans compared to what it was, which you're running the risk of volcanic pressure due to the pressing down of all that weight, and the magma gets pushed up elsewhere. You know, things happen that we don't expect, just like war. Once you start a war, you don't know which way it's going to go. Battle of Gettysburg was an example where things started happening and then they spilled over into other directions that you didn't expect. So once you get the volcanoes, you're also getting tectonic plate shift, which could cause even more volcanoes, more CO2 in the atmosphere. It's a whole show going on, and it's not a good situation at all. So the level of catastrophe right now, no one's ever done a chart like this, and this is just my idea of what's going to happen, is that we're at 4 times what we used to be as far as level of catastrophe. So all these catastrophes we're seeing is just the beginning. It's going to get much, 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 did I say much, much more horrendous than what it is. And it's going to start going up at a rate we cannot control. It's a doubling effect. And when you get to 2 degrees Celsius, basically it's game over. But the United Nations, as I said, is predicting 2.6 degrees Celsius. And so those knuckleheads there seem to think we can survive such a situation. You won't be able to. By 1.5 degrees, well, in fact, now you're starting to see feedback loops happening in the Arctic and everything with the loss of sea ice and causing more albedo loss, which the oceans there absorb more heat. The Antarctica, the sea ice around there is at its lowest point ever. So instead of the oceans cooling down and the sun being reflected back into the atmosphere during their summer, which is our winter here, you're having heating of the oceans. So we're into a bad situation, and I hope y'all decide to become more informed as to what's going on. Many of you already know what's happening. Please check out Environmental Coffee House every Friday night with Jennifer and Sandy. Sandy also does great shows during the week. But definitely Environmental Coffee House on Friday nights on YouTube. You also got Paul Beckwith. You got Peter Carter. Many, many great things. Type in the word climate change on YouTube, and you can get many, many lectures and scientific studies and people talking about climate change and what's happening. Type in climate change protests around the world. The United States is so far behind everyone, it's not even funny. No one can even think about protesting or would dare think about that because their friends would be upset with them. So this is the TICC-TOC scale, the International Climate Change Table of Catastrophe, and I call it the McHenry scale. No one's ever tried to do this before. So I hope someone decides to do something about it. I'll hold it up to the camera so you get a closer shot of it. But you know, this is a whole catastrophe that we're looking at right now, and the people that are dying right now are already in a catastrophic situation. So we need to start being kind with each other, kind to the planet, and realize that we're all one. There is no border with this situation going on. No border in a nuclear war. No border in a bioweapon. So we're causing our own destruction. It's very foolish. It's absolute insanity. Quit voting for the same people. If your party is not engaged in actually solving these problems, which none of them are in the United States right now, none. Don't pretend. Don't act like it is. Change your party from within. Get moving on that. Get yelling at them at your own party headquarters, not the opposite party. The opposite party is not the problem. It's your party, whether it's Republican or Democrat here in the United States and other parties throughout the world, that are the problem. These leaders are in charge. They're the ones that have gotten us to this point, and we need to do something about it. And if you can't get it solved that way, then it's going to end in violence. Eventually, there's going to be government unrest, civil unrest, because the people are dying all over the place. I don't understand why California people aren't protesting climate change. If you got friends in California, share this video with them. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. It's going to get worse around the whole country here in the United States. It's going to get worse in India, going to get worse in the global south. There's no place that's going to get untouched by climate change. So I'll catch you next week. That'll be March 17th, and that'll be number 224. Don't forget the TICC-TOC scale, the International Climate Change Table of Catastrophe. Okay? I'll see you later.